we are looking to have a statue of Andy Murray here, and we're working close with him and his team. And the ambition is that we would unveil that at the 150th anniversary of our first championships, which was 1877. So 150th is 2027.
Oh, wow, that would be lovely.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah, that would be really special.
He's got to rightly be very involved in that, and him and his team will be.
Debbie, I hope you appreciate the fact that I've come dressed as a tennis court today.
I do. I notice actually you're blending in well with court 7 over there and court 6. I'm super impressed, but you have no purple.
I have no purple. And when I turn up for the championships in, well, not very long time to wait till that, I will bring the purple. That will be my mission, to bring the purple.
I've noted that.
How on earth do you go about planning for a tournament like this? Because around us, we're looking at various different people working on the courts behind us, checking what they need to check before the championships take to the stage. But what goes into this to make this come together?
I mean, there is a huge amount. I mean, we're lucky that we have the same venue every year and it's the same sport. So in that sense, we start from a very good base. But you start planning this a long while before. And the attention to detail is something that I'm immensely proud of that we do. So after every championships, you'll have a debrief. The chief exec will sit down with her key team and go through what worked, what didn't work, where can we improve, ensuring that we actually stick to our values. And I think that's the baseline that we start from. So, you have 50,000 flowers throughout the site, which just makes Wimbledon special. And you can see they're already in situ, a lot of them. But it's the fact that you plan in advance. So we make sure that we're ready a week before the championship. So day one is never day one of the event. Day one is the week before. And then you run a full test. So if there is any tweaking that needs doing, you do it then, because you don't want day one ever to be your test event. So, and that's like with the Olympic Games. That's the reason we ran so many test events, because nothing happens by chance.
How do you feel personally in the build up to what is an epic couple of weeks?
Yeah. You feel an excitement, and there's also a degree of nervousness because you want everything to go well, and you can control the controllables, but there are certain things that aren't in your control. You think of the last 2 Wimbledons, they've been so wet. Yeah. And then there are challenges with the scheduling, etc. But I still get a sense of excitement, and I still pinch myself how fortunate I am to be in this role. And it every day is like day one. It really is. I'm very excited by it.
We're sat here overlooking all of these outside courts, which are spectacular. Originally, we thought, well, shall we film inside centre court? And then the rain came.
I know.
So we stepped away from that. And I guess that is the daily challenge facing you all as organisers of this incredible event, that you do have to navigate that. I mean, as we say, the sun's now come out, which is perfect. I mean, surely that's how you want to start on Monday, first
you
week of
absolutely
Wimbledon.
Do. You want to start Monday with the roof off, the sun shining, blue skies like this, the players out on the court, all in their white clothes, everybody having a lovely time. Absolutely, that's what you want. But there, as I say, you can only control the controllables, and weather is not one thing that we do have control over. We can work on it, but currently we don't.
I was lucky enough to sneak onto centre court earlier and just sort of watch the preparations take place and everything else. And I was thinking of, and as you walk sort of through that area, you see the honours board with past champions on it and everything else. And you get a real sort of emotional connection to how many great epic moments have taken place, iconic moments have taken place on that court. When you look back and you reflect, which of those really stand out for you as moments that, once again, pinch yourself moments?
I mean, that, just sort of to digress slightly, yesterday, Barbora Krejcikova came to the club just to have a look around. She was, of course, last year's ladies champion.
Yeah.
And I saw her, we had a chat, and we actually walked out on centre court. She's like, can I see centre court? So we walked out, and you could see the emotion. I mean, it's realising how special it was. So that wasn't a match, but that was a very, very special moment.
Just explain why that was particularly poignant as well, because there's sort of a story behind that.
Yeah, I mean, so she was, when she came off court last year, and by the time the champion comes off, her name is already, or his name is already on the boards. We stopped and looked at it, and to the left, which I showed, was Jana Novotná's name. And Jana was a good friend of mine as well, who sadly passed away, but was also Barbora's mentor and inspiration. And when she saw her name next to Jana's, she just broke down. So then coming back a year later, walking back on that court, knowing that in a couple of weeks, she's going to open play on centre court, as ladies champion. It was a very, very special moment for me to see how emotional she was. And when I think of matches, my mind always goes back to the Nadal-Federer match. I mean, that was
2008.
an incredible final where if it had gone on a couple more games, then the referee was going to call it off because we had no roof at that time, of course. So a couple more games would have been coming back on the Monday. But that was just an epic match.
And I suppose what that sort of signified as well in the men's game was there was a slight change of the guard at that moment because Federer had been so dominant in the lead up to that game or that match. And so it felt like something new was coming. And then that started that whole era off of that fabulous four.
It did with Djokovic, Andy Murray, Nadal and Federer. It was a very special time. And of course, the French Open recently, you had that final with Sinner and Alcaraz when everyone's saying that's another changing of the guard. And that's the beauty of tennis. It does evolve both on the men's and women's side, and you constantly have champions coming through.
One of the things we did have to wait rather long for was a British male winner in Andy Murray, which was the most incredible moment in 2013. Just talk about that from your perspective, because I think you were on the club committee at that time and you were very much involved behind the scenes. Obviously, in the lead up to Wimbledon, everyone's hyping the possibility that we may end up with a British male champion for the first time in 77 years. What was that like behind the scenes, sort of preparing for that, but not wanting to jinx it, and then in that moment actually, being there for the reality?
No, I mean, you always want it, and you always hope for a British win. Of course you have. We're all patriotic, but Andy had won, of course, the Olympics the year before here. So he'd had that experience on centre court, and we were hoping that maybe that could, help him this year with winning the Wimbledon title. But when he won, it was just so special for him, so special for us as a club. And we're now he's retired, we're very much looking to how we can embrace him for him to be a part of the club in the long term. But yes, you're always nervous going on when there's a final because you just want everything to go well. And that was just an added degree of nervousness.
He's one of those players, isn't he, that when you watched him, you were just, everything in you was just hoping, aching for him to, end up with that victory at the end, especially in that match. I was here, I remember, for both the Olympic, for both that Olympic match,
the Olympics was very
and
special.
Also for his final in 2013, and it was the most. As a group of people, when you think of the whole of centre court, just absolutely gunning for one outcome.
Absolutely.
And it was really special. What did it do you think, to not just British tennis, but also Wimbledon? Was there a renewed sense of sort of confidence, of pride, of sort of expectation on Brits placed on everybody after that championship win?
There's always pressure if you're a British player coming into Wimbledon, and you always look for the headlines, which, number of British players lost in the first round, etc., or the second round. So there is always that pressure on the players of British success. But for us as a championships, of course, we embrace, welcome, love British success. But we want it to be as good for, the same standards for everybody, to be honest. So a British win is icing on the cake for us. It really is. But we focus on just being the best that we can be for all the players. Because you think about it, and it through Ben, right? You work so hard for that one moment where everything depends on it, and we don't want the players to worry about anything other than their performance on the field of play, and that applies to all the players that are here. So the British win is just the icing on the cake.
And so what are you going to do for Andy Murray moving forward? I mean, we looked at, Rafa Nadal having that sort of plaque unveiled to him at Roland Garros, which was all very special. What do we do for Andy?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great celebration for Andy when he played his last match on the match was on centre court, and then when all the old players came and they greeted him, and Sue Barker interviewed him. So we did a similar thing for him here last year. But we are looking to have a statue of Andy Murray here, and we're working close with him and his team. And the ambition is that we would unveil that at the 150th anniversary of our first championships, which was 1877. So 150th is 2027.
Oh wow, that would be lovely.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah, that would be really
so
special.
It's he's got to rightly be very involved in that, and him and his team will be.
Moving the Brit piece forward, because everybody said after Andy Murray retired, oh no, what are we going to do? And yet, you're seeing the likes of Jack Draper, next level this year on the tour. Cam Norrie, Jacob Fernley, On the women's side, Emma Raducanu, Katie Boulter. There's a whole trough of players coming through that look pretty strong. I mean, how confident are you about the direction of travel for British tennis?
I think it is often cyclical, but if you look at the number of players we have in the top 50 on the women's side and on the men's side, we have a good solid base from which to drive forward success in British tennis, Billie Jean King Cup or the Davis Cup. So I am very hopeful, and you're seeing that constant stream of players, which is important. And of course, Katie got 20s in the world. Yep. Emma's already won 1 Grand Slam. Why not another? She moves so well. She's great on grass. And Jack, with his serve and the power of his game, who knows? I mean, he's top 5 in the world now, so it's pretty impressive.
And I suppose that, that plays into this whole piece about having this new facility on the other side of the road from the current championships, right? Because how do you continue to further the path of, great British tennis, but also the Wimbledon story without it?
It is. We look, and we are the only we're the only Grand Slam that doesn't have our qualifying A on site. Yeah. And B has a permanent venue. We rent land from the Bank of England. So we need to have that land. We need the 3rd show court. We need to maintain our position at the pinnacle of sport. And you look at what the other Grand Slams have done. And that qualifying week, they now embrace community events, charity events. It allows many more people to come onto the, watch top players play. So we do need that expansion. We're an island site here. It's a beautiful site, but it's an island site, and you can probably hear in the background all the construction that's needed. Because we are a small site, we have to do a lot of temporary build. So as well as being essential for the championships, it also allows us to open up what was a private golf course, open up 23 acres in one part of what was the golf course and 4 acres in another, to the public. And I've spoken to a lot of locals. I live locally, and basically they want us to get on with it because it's good for the environment, good for biodiversity. We're going to de-salt the lake, and I'm very excited about being able to deliver for the community as well as the championships.
I suppose that is always the balance to be striking here, isn't it, with the championships? It's this balance of tradition meets progression, and actually how you can be innovative without taking away from the heritage of what everybody loves about Wimbledon, which is the traditional piece. And I suppose as first female chair, you break that ground. You absolutely smash through that ceiling.
That's true, actually. I hadn't thought of that.
And which is in one way a version of progression. How important is it, though, to sort of find that balance and always make sure you're sort of sense checking?
Totally. And that's what we do all the time. So tradition with innovation is our mantra. And I'm determined, as long as I'm sitting here, we will stick to that. You don't see advertising hoardings all around the ground. The backdrop on the courts is plain. Yet we have embraced electronic line calling, which happens throughout the tour. It's been happening at the Australian Open, the US Open for many years. The players expect it. So we will embrace technology and we've having thoroughly tested, and believe me, we've done a lot of testing. So we'll embrace that and the innovation, but our traditions, all white, grass, our flowers, and no adverts at the back of the court. It's really important, not big LED screens. And I think I do want to maintain that. It's hugely something that's important to me.
What do we do about the fact that we might not have these shrieks from line judges of oohs and ahs and everything else that comes with that? Some of the character of that, which is fun and people get behind, and sometimes it can break up quite a static moment and bring some fun to the occasion.
Yeah, but you still do have line calling. When the call is when the ball is out, you still have out. You still the umpire is still doing the score. The players may complain to the umpire about something. So it's not going to be sort of an atmosphere that is just very dry and very silent. You'll still have all of that. You'll still have the sound as if, the umpire's calling out. You still do get that noise. And I think actually when people hear the sounds, which they will, you don't notice that the linesmen aren't there, to be perfectly honest.
And I'm guessing you sort of have to make that call as well, because in this day and age, tennis is really big business. And these players are sort of, scrapping out points for big money and, and positions of status and power within the game. So you have to listen to what they want to.
And they embrace it. And, the degree of accuracy is very, very, very good. We've done a lot of testing. And the players are used to it. The players are used to it. They play with it week in, week out on the tour and 2 of the other 3 Grand Slams. So it's important that we do embrace it. And, you've seen all the testing that's going on still.
Whilst we're on the subject of tradition versus progression, if you had to get rid of one traditional piece that recurs time and time again, and you could say tomorrow, I'm out with that, what would you think it would be?
Do you know what? You're going to call me a politician here. There isn't anything. I think we get it right. Like everyone says, the linesmen, and they have gone. That was a tradition of the sport. So I think we will see how things evolve over the coming years. But what we have honorary stewards, we have the service personnel, we have the flowers, we have the jacket and tie, and I love that. I think that attention to detail is really important. Yet, if you saw in the Millennium Building that we're upgrading, the facilities in there for the players are very much 21st century with everything that they have to ensure they can perform to the best of their ability. So that mix we get right, and I'm happy with where we're at.
What about if there was one thing that you would say absolutely personifies Wimbledon as something that you would forever want to keep, past your tenure, past anybody else's tenure? What would that one thing be?
Those courts and the all white.
Those courts and the all white. Fair enough. In the lead up then, because we're not so very far away from the tournament starting, what does the sort of final week look like for you personally? Presumably you're absolutely showered in media requests and all manner of different appearances. But what does that feel like to you in that lead up to the tournament? Because as you say, you don't go into this on day one with it being day one. No.
So we would done the testing the week before. To be honest, I just make sure I pace myself because it is relentless. You've been here a few times. It starts, matches may start at 1 and 1:30, but the outside courts start earlier, and we get here earlier and we greet our guests and a plan for the day. You look at anything that's happened the day before. So it literally is 8 in the morning until 10 at night for 14 straight days. So in that week, I just make sure that I'm prepared, make sure I'm sensible and rested, ready for my marathon. So that's really, it's just ticking boxes and making sure that calm and prepared, really. And it's when you're looking at, I treat it a little bit like an athlete, and as we said about that, you want to make sure that you peak at the right time, right? You don't want to, a week before is when I want to be absolutely raring to go, because then when it comes to the actual event, I won't be. So you pace yourself so that on that day one, you're ready to go, and that you've done everything that you need to do to be the best that you can be, similar to an athlete.
Is that something also that you sort of brought in from you've been in many leadership roles before within sport? Is that something that you've also been able to apply to this one based on the learnings and mistakes and also experiences that you would have come to this job with, from being involved in rugby, being involved in the Olympic bid and the Olympic piece as well? I mean, there must be massive learnings from those times.
No, there are. I think for a long while, people looked at athletes, they're only an athlete. They only do A, B, and C. They're not a businessman. They didn't necessarily go to university, don't have a degree. And then what has happened of late is that many of the skills that you learn as an athlete, delivering under pressure, attention to detail, preparation, all of those aspects actually translate well into business. And there's more of a realization of that. And I think you see more sportsmen going into leadership roles, be it in sport or outside. So I've certainly taken a lot of that I've learned as an athlete into here. Like, for example, you can't wing it. If you go into anything thinking you can fake it, you're never going to be the best you can be. So the preparation and delivery under pressure, I think, being a sportsman puts me in a good position for the leadership roles I've had in sport, as you say, be it the Olympics, football, rugby, whatever it may be. It puts you in good stead to understand that pressure.
I remember you speaking previously about, the sort of the nervous excitement that can come in advance of a big moment. I remember you talking about that before the Olympic bid was announced and before London 2012.
I know.
And those moments. And is that similar as well to the anticipation before a big championship?
It is. Gosh, I remember that well when we were in Singapore, and then us and Paris on the other side, and all of the media were in front of Paris. We're like, this is going really well. And then he announced, that was...
Who were you? You were with quite a few luminary.
No, we were, because I was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the 12 that was on stage presenting our bid. And I remember that, Seb did the presentation. At the end, you can answer questions, and Prince Albert of Monaco asked a question, and Seb just said, "Oh, our sports director will answer that." And I'm like, "Will I? Thanks, mate." So that was kind of a pressure moment. But yes, you do. When we're sitting out there, and I'm fortunate enough to be in the roll box, when Alcaraz walks out on day one, I will be looking around and thinking, please let everything work.
Do you make a promise to yourself not to eat strawberries and cream at every single afternoon tea that's served over the course of that fortnight? Because I don't know how you get through it otherwise.
You do. I do try. I mean, they are fantastic strawberries.
It's very spoiling, but it might be a bit much after 10 goes round.
Yeah, I do not want to look like a strawberry on day 14. So, but you do. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to enjoy them. I do not eat strawberries every day. But if anybody is coming, I urge them to try them because they are very good.
How many thousands of strawberries end up here during the chat? Isn't it something like 56,000?
It is. It's a huge number that come all the way from Kent, and are grown. So
Okay, well, I look forward to getting tucked into those some point over the championships. I will. I'll be eating your portion too. Debbie, thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat to you.
All right, it's good to see you, Georgie.